my browser. Typically, yes, you can do it, but for most of the time, you would likely be using not your browser. You'll be using what's called Postman. So Postman is a technology. That's this particular thing. So I'll show you where to download it after now. So in Postman, you use it to test all of your endpoints.
Good evening.
Hello, Bukola, how are you doing? Good evening.
Fine. Please, is it possible that you like expand your screen? All the last recording, I couldn't see it at all. Today, I'm using the laptop, but it looks like it's too small.
I think it's covering the entire screen. It's actually covering the entire screen. It's covering the entire screen. It's probably because I don't know, maybe you are using your phone to view it.
Yes, the last time I used my phone, it was
Your phone, right?
the same.
Where are you being on your phone?
No, I'm like moved to my laptop tonight.
Sorry, I didn't get you.
I'm using my laptop tonight.
No, I mean when you
It's
are
too
viewing
small.
the recording you're talking about. If you use your screen, it will be bigger. But if you use phone or any other,
Yes, I use my phone.
your phone back,
Yes.
yeah. If you use phone, it will be bigger. So I was talking about Postman. I was talking about Postman. You use Postman to test all of your endpoints. And I say endpoint is like the URLs, the different URLs you create. So and so this is what Postman basically looks like. This thing you're seeing here. This is how Postman looks. So this particular thing is I guess this was when I was trying to do an application. So everything you're seeing here is for different applications. Everything, every folder you're seeing here, they are for different. This one, two. Sorry, let me start from beginning. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Everything here is for different applications, and all of those applications they have different requests that are being sent to them. So for this one that has to do requests, it was I think it was for a particular application to do app. So on the app you can create different tasks you want to achieve later in the future, and you can move one task from a particular status to another. When I say move, I mean from like you can leave a task on like pending, and then you move it to in view. Sorry, in progress. That's to say, you started doing the task and then move from in progress to done. So that kind of thing. That's what the application was doing. So if for each of those endpoints, these things you're seeing here, everything you're seeing, can I zoom this? Command. Okay, I guess I can. Yeah, I can zoom this on. So for each of these things you're seeing here, there are different endpoints that allow requests to be sent to the app. So if the application, the server, if the server was running, we would have tested it. But for this application, is not. I don't even think I have it on this particular laptop. So if so this is for sign up. So for sign up, it does a post request. And remember what post it takes in information that's been passed by a particular person that wants to log in, a particular user that wants to log in. So this one is to test for the sign up. This one is to test for the login, and this particular URL you're seeing here, this for to test for that one. I showed you sign up. You see the URL. They are all on the same port but different endpoints. Remember, I said endpoint is like the entire URL thing. So this one is to add task on your application. You can decide to add task. So this particular URL handles that. If you so if you click on something to add task, it triggers your application on this particular URL, and it enables you to add task. If you want to edit an existing task, this is what it will look like. This is what the entire thing is going to look like. So this one is for the ID of the task you want to edit. So if If you want to delete tasks, you just
Sorry to cut you. Does
yeah.
it mean that every task you want to create has its own URL?
Yes, every request you want to send has its own URL. Every request. Not every task, but every request. Every request.
Okay.
Yes. Anyway, this is what this particular application is. It may not be the same for another one. So every time I'm just showing you that how the how we can have different endpoints for different calls or requests. So I just wanted to do um, something brief to make use of Postman and to show you how it was. So I've already set up this particular Spring Boot. Is Jennifer still here? She's still here.
I'm still here.
Okay, that's fine. So I've already set up this particular Spring Boot application. This particular um, um, class you're seeing here. This is where the Spring Boot application initializes. This one that has at Spring Boot application annotation here. So okay, so we're not doing anything here. So we create our different packages. So what I want to work on is, let's say for a particular, let's say on a school that has a number of students with different student IDs and name, age, and the rest of the student information. So, so I wanted to show you how you would need to structure your folder or your file for any Spring Boot application you're going to be doing. So first you're going to have something called entity. So entity is where you all the not all the should I say user classes, everything that is everything that needs to be stored in our database. But so far, we're not going to be making use of database. That's like an entirely another scope. That's entirely another scope. So we're just going to be doing things on the surface level. So we have our entity here, and then we have our controller. This is one you're mostly used to, controller. So this is our controller, and so inside our controller we have inside our controller would anyway. First of all, I need to create my entity.
Sorry, I'm lost. The entity and controller. How did you come? How did you get it?
Okay, these are just two packages on their own. I've not created anything else. Just the regular way. You right click the place you want to create a package, go to your new, and then select that you want to create, then create a package. Yeah. So the entities that are just involved in this demonstration is students. So so this is students, and what are the particulars the students need to have? The student needs to have, let's say, student name. The student needs to have ID. Okay, let's say the ID has to be long. And what else should the students have? Students might have an email, which is also a string. And okay, let's just keep it as simple as this. So here we have our controller. We have our controller. Let's call it student controller. And because it's a controller, remember when our server starts spinning, it needs to recognize it needs to recognize this class as a controller. And to be able to do that, we use the annotation I used before, REST controller, to do that. So by doing this, it has told you that this particular place is a controller. And in the controller is where all these various endpoints are established. These endpoints you're seeing here. We're coming to that shortly. And okay, these students, we need to, because we may want to use a getter as setter, what we need, as getter and as setter, let's in, okay, it looks like I don't have Lombok on my this, do I? Do I have Lombok? So I don't have Lombok. So Lombok is the application that has that getter setter. So you can do option command, or if you're on Windows, you can use I think what is it called? On Mac it's called option, or Windows I've forgotten what it's called. Give me a second. What is it called?
I think it's control or alternate. I've forgotten the exact one.
Give me a second. Yeah, it's called Alt on Windows. I don't know. My brain is not working fine. So on Windows it's called Alt, on Mac it's called Option. So you hit Option then Command. It will show you the possible dependency you're looking for. So if you click it, it will start installing it in your display. So if you look, okay, this thing just got included just now after I included it. So Lombok is the dependency that carries this getter setter. So there are notations you may want to be using straight up, but I've forgotten that I've not included the dependency. So now I can use it. So I also have setter. Remember getter setter, what they do is for, what do? They help us to eliminate the need to start hard coding getter setter under here. So just by using a notation like this, everything is good. If you look here, the color has changed because it has been used. It has been used invisibly here. It doesn't need to outline everything, but it's in use like this. So this is just what I need for now. So we'll go back to our controller. Say we want to build an endpoint that gets okay. The other thing we can do is to assign and create another field for students. Let's say this one carries what score. So what I want to do is like to fetch students according to, that have a particular, let's say they have a particular grade, higher or lower, a particular benchmark. So what I could do is to create a controller for that. Say public. What are we returning? We are returning something of type student, and let's say get student. Let's say I want to get students that have score higher than, let's say, 60. Get students with score higher than what, 60. So in many cases you may see yourself creating a method that has very long names like this. It's fine. It's fine, because if another person has to read your code, just by reading this way, they understand what you're trying to do. So it also eliminates the necessity of us having to start writing comments to tell us what this particular method is doing. So it's fine to write long method names this way. So what you could do is to okay. So say for instance we have let's create a number of students. Let's say student equal to new student. So, okay. Okay, so because I want to include straight up their name, score, and everything, what I could do is to include what I could do is to create the constructor. Everything is fine, but what I want is not just to create this thing and start assigning their individual name and everything. Personally, I want to assign the name straight up as I'm creating it. And what I mean by that is for me to start creating a constructor that you know how constructor works. That's public student then string name blah long ID. You know that long stuff now, so I'm not going to be doing that now. So to cater for a constructor that gives me the ability to um, supply all of these fields, what I could do is to annotate it with all acts constructor. So that thing I was trying to do, and this annotation, all acts constructor, will help me establish that. I don't know if this is clear. Boko and Jennifer, this clear? Or I should go over it again. Okay, so I'll take that as a yes. So now what I would need to do is to supply those fields. And the first one, IntelliJ is already giving me so yes. And the first one is name. Let's say let's say Emma is the name of this student, and his ID is probably two. Let's say one, and then his email is emma@gmail.com. And then what's the last thing? The last thing is saying is the presence form, and it's a long. Let's say let's say this is it. So this is for these students. What I could do is to duplicate this thing and create other students. Let's say the ID, this one is student one. Okay, let me start with student one, and then this one is student two, and then this one is three, this one is four, and then this one is five. Let's say this one is the name is Uday, and the ID of this one is two, and this is uday@gmail.com, and this one has a score of, let's see, 40, and this one is Lovett, and Lovett has the student ID of 3, and this the email is lovey@gmail.com, and say she has a score of 80, and then this other one is, let's say, Lily, I don't know, any name that comes to mind. So this is the Gmail of this one, and this one has a score of, say, 100. And this what you could use is Lily, and Lily's ID is ID of 5, and this is Lily at gmail.com, and say she has a score of 60. Okay, so because this what you could do is to return a list of students, because what you're getting is get students with score higher than 60. So what you're supposed to be returning is actually a list of students, and not just one student, So I need to import this one. All right. So what you could do is to create a list of students. This is students, and let's say student new array list. So this is going to be an array list of students. The implementation we're using is for array list. So what you could do is to look through um, okay, so this is students one, student two, student three. So okay, so what you could do is to do a couple of checks, or should I? What could I do? Okay, let's do a couple of checks. So if student one. So what I want to do now is to check each of these person's scores. So this one has a score of 50, this one 40, 80, 100, and 60. So we need the number of students whose scores are higher than okay. Okay, let's not restrict this thing to 60. Let's say we have the ability to put in any particular score. It mustn't be 60. Let's say students with um, uh, okay, let me just say get students by score. Okay.
Oh.
Yes. So I'm just not restricting this to 60. I may want to put in 40 or anything. So this is capital. Should make this capital B. So this green mark goes. So alright. So it's going. So what I could do is if students one. Okay. So because I changed this thing, my logic will have to change. Okay, it's still possible anyway. So let's say we have a long. Let's say we have long, and then the particular score we want to check against. So it's possible that we may want to check for score 60 and get students whose scores are higher than 60. So what I could do is if student one dot score, right, dot get score is greater than score, what you may want to do is to add student add what you may want to do is students not students one students dot add. What are we adding? We are adding students one, exactly. So if, for example, in the future we pass in 60 here, what would happen is to check is student one, does the person have a score that is greater than 60? If it is so, that student should be included in this our list. So I'll do the same for every other student. I'll do the same for every other student. So I'll do a number of copy and paste. I'll do a number of copy and paste and do for student 2. If the guy's score is higher than the particular thing we're checking against, it will add to our list. I'll do for 3 also. Then I'll do for 4. I'll need to optimize this thing later. This is not the best practice, but it works for now. So I will need to optimize this thing 5. So it has checked all of these 5 students. If the score is greater than whatever we are looking for, we should do that. And then after everything, then return our, what are we returning? We are returning our list. We are returning our list. And semicolon is needed here. So let me rename this thing. It's always sensible to name your variables in a way you understand, not just students. So this one, I'll just call it, okay, student. You see, Intelligence is giving me suggestion, student list. I'll just call it student list. And observe what I did. I changed once here and it affected every other place. That's because I came here, I did refactor and then rename. If you do refactor means that I want to change it in every other place. I've already said this before. So I'll do rename. If whatever I do here, it will look for all these green marks places. It will adjust everything. So this is it. So so eventually I'll get a list of students that who scores greater than a particular stuff I'm looking for. But this thing is just a method on its own. Nothing is happening yet. If our server starts running, it will need to be able to accept this method. It's just a plain method as it is now. So we need a URL to perform this action, and the URL is what I was calling endpoint. So what I needed was to just to specify uh, the particular endpoint with which I can do this thing as specified here now. So if I went to my Postman and type what I'm about to type now, I'll be able to access this particular method. So what I could do is to name it get students with get students. What could I do? What could I need something short. It's not always good for URLs to be long. I'll just leave it at guest. No, it's not proper. Let's call it guest. You guys suggest for me now.
Cause
Sorry, I'm looking for the
if
name.
you use get student scores, just use get scores. Maybe it's shorter.
Okay, guest students call it maybe better. Yeah, so we need a way to be able, because if I went here and just wrote get student scores, we need to be a way to be able to pass the particular score we want to check against. Say for example, we want to check score 80. We need a way to be able to pass it on our URL. If you look here, this particular delete task, I was able to pass in a particular task I wanted to delete. So here, the ID of the task was 1. So doing something like this, you are able to pass in uh, parameters. It's called request parameter. Pass variable. Is it pass variable? No, it's not pass variable. It's not pass variable. What's it even called again? Anyway, I'll get to that. So now what I want to do is to pass in. Okay, it's called score. So anything anything I pass in here, anything I pass in here will stand in for the score that this thing will check against. And for this thing to be able to capture that score, it's not just for us to specify it here. What I need to do is to use this annotation. What is it? Is it past variable? I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure. Okay, yeah, I think it's past variable. I'm confused between past parameter and past variable, but it should be past variable. So if I made the request in on my Postman, I'm putting, let's say, 40. This path variable, what it will do is it will capture um, the corresponding variable, which is called the value that was put in this position, and put it in here. So if I put in 80, whatever, if I wrote on my URL get student score slash 80, so 80 automatically will be the parameter and the argument you're passing in here. You know how method works now. So you create a method, then when you want to use it, you pass in and the arguments you want to work with. So all I've just done now is I've created my method, and then I believe, am I missing any other thing? So this gets mapping, because what we're doing is we are returning something, and that's list of students. We are returning a list of students, and yeah, I think we are good to go. So when this is set, what I could do is to come here and then and start up my server. So remember to annotate with REST controller and what's more. And because this one is gets mapping, we just specify the URL and whatever you need to pass in as our parameter. And our server should be running on 1990, because that was what we specified on our, okay, it's not this application. So by default, it should be running on port 8080. But if I wanted to change it, I could change it in this application.properties and specify the new port I want it to be running on. Alright, okay. Give me a second, let this server. Let's see one thing. Okay, I think it's done. So, alright, so I'm just going to close this project, and I'll create a new one. I could call it, okay, so this one I just created is called a new collection. This is named alphabetically. So I may want to rename this to, where's rename? Okay, edit. So I may want to edit it and call it just demo. So where is it? Okay, so we add a request. This is how you add a request. You go to these three dots here, you click on add request, and because it's a get request, if it were post, you just click on this drop down arrow and select post. So these are other types of requests, but this one's down, you may never even use it. So it's usually this first 5: get, post, put, patch, and delete you're going to be using. So because we're doing get request, we leave it at guest, and then type in the URL. So these are suggestions from the old ones I've worked with. So you type in the URL. So what is running on port 8080, if you look down here, it's specified here. If another application is running on this port 8080, this our application will not even, it will indicate error. So it's port 8080. So this will change to, what? Get student score. So get student score, and because it's, if I run this thing now, let me minimize this a bit. Okay. So if I run this thing now, it will not return anything. It should give us error. And the error code, and this is something else you need to know. This codes, computer basically, programming basically specified ways we can use code as sort of shorthand. So 404 you're saying here means something. It means that I didn't create any endpoint for such thing. There's no, yeah, Alex, there's no, so there's no endpoint for that, and that's why it's returning 404. 404, like I said, means the resource is not found. And the reason, but if you look here, you can see that we have guest students. But there's a reason why it's still failing. Could anyone guess why? So if you look here, we have guest
Yeah,
students.
because we didn't save it.
Sorry?
I think because you didn't save it.
No, it doesn't need to be saved. It doesn't need to be saved. So the reason is because as I've typed this thing here, so must I use it. I've said that anytime I use guest students, except there is another method that was created with guest student score, then to make use of it. But because for this particular one, I created guest student score. But I'm telling you that I have to supply something extra here. That's for the score. It then means I would have to supply, and the score we want to test with first is 60. So because I've supplied this extra thing here, it will map to this one. So if I hit send, something would okay, it's still returning page not found. What could be the reason? Get students scores. You see, this has s after it. This scores is plural, so it has to match exactly. So I would come here and put in my s. So if I hit send, if things go fine, it should return something reasonable. Okay, this is it. Fine. Yeah, sure you guys can see it. So these two persons, so this is our list. This is the list that's been returned now. So having two students, students Lovett and students Lily, because their scores are more than what? 60. Is this not lovely? Are you guys there?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So because I specified that the score needs to be 60, so basically this entire thing that happens in backend. A request is sent. Every request you make on your browser, like this, like every request you make, every request, you see all these things you're seeing here, all these things, they mean something. Every request you send on your browser, they mean something. So now you do your variable now. Let's say int, you go to center. Let's say int, Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z, space, up. Say we want int var equal to 2. So this var is standing in for whatever I pass in as my value here, which is 2. So this score is standing in for whatever I pass in as my value. That's why they call it pass variable. So there are other many types of.
This is going to be
DEA agents found weapons, including a carbine rifle,
Sorry.
thousands of dollars.
And so we're expecting this last 3%, Lovett, Lily, and the other one. So what I could do,
Including a triple beam scale.
Yeah, sorry. Question I wanted to ask, maybe
Yeah.
because I wasn't in the last class.
okay.
This other site, this Spring Boot, I think the app that you are getting these scores from, is it running on your browser?
Sorry, this one. Is it this one? Sorry, which one are you asking? Let me know.
Yes, this particular one.
Sorry, I was muted. I was asking. Sorry. Which one are you asking? This one?
Yes, this one.
Yeah, remember what I told you? Typically, as a back-end developer, you're not going to be a back-end developer. You're not going to make use of browser. If I place it here, it will give me the same result. You see? And it puts it in a way that is not beautiful. So you're seeing it. So you mostly be using Postman the way you've seen it here. Are you there?
Okay, this is like Postman.
Yeah, Postman is for us to be testing our
Yes,
endpoints.
and I think Postman is another app you will install.
Yes, you have to see. This is the icon. This guy here that's leaning forward. So I'll share the
Okay.
link where you download it from. So
Thank you, sir.
yeah. So the Postman basically is for you to be testing. This thing you're seeing here is called an endpoint. It's called an endpoint. So if I make so many other endpoints, all of them together is considered as API, Application Programming Interface, because they give us a way to access the internals of a particular program. So this one as it is now is an API standing on its own. So it's possible for me to package this thing and source it out so other developers can make use of it. But this one is just so so let's see the results. So we have Lovett, Lily, and Lee. So these three persons here, their scores are more than 50 as I specified on top. And so so this is just for get. I would have loved to um, okay, so let's dig more. So it's possible for us to, you see the way I created students here. It's possible, and this is what this is more like hard coding. If, for example, you are a user, you want to register with an application, and so this is what the post request looks like. We have it takes in void, and let's say register students. What does it take in? It takes in okay, it takes in a student, and then what it does is what I could do is to what I could do is in fact to remove all these things from here. Um, I'm thinking of the best way to do this. What's the best way to do this? What's the best way to do this? Okay, so I will remove this entire thing. I'll remove this entire thing and simply have a list of. So okay, let me leave it for your because I'll post this file later. So I'll just leave this. I'll just leave this one as it is now. So what I could do is to, because I want to register students, I'm not making use of database. What I could do is to have a list of students, and let's call this one all students equals new list, array list, right? And what I could do is to what I could do is to do all students list all students dot add. What are we adding? We're adding students. So if, for example, I wanted to register a student, this was like. So this one here is going to be serving more like my database. So if I post in a student via my Postman, it will go straight and add the guy into this list. So the other thing I could do, this thing is not complete. Remember, it's post. So what we could do is to do post mapping, and then and provide the URL for that. And what's the URL going to look like? Let's call it register students, and because everything what I'm doing now is going to be coming via Postman, we're going to use another annotation called request body. So I'll show you what this request body is like. So request body enables us basically to capture the information of the student that's been registered. And we're expecting that information to be mapped the way students object is created. So I'm coming to this request body. So what I could also do is to create another endpoint for get all students, and let's say this one is get all students, and what I could do is public list, because we're returning a list of all the students, returning a list of all students. What should I call this one? Get all students. And it's not going to be taking anything. What we are going to be returning is all students. All students. So I believe this is, yeah. So this is it. So I'm going to this one. I'm going to leave it. But what I'm going to so while it's starting, I could go to my Postman. Where is it? What did I name it? Demo, I think. See, what I do is to continue changing this thing. Change this endpoint to, let's say, for this one, get all students. Let's say get, sorry, all students. And then if I send my request, it will go. But I don't want to be doing changing and changing and changing, and you get. So that's why we have the ability to come here and then add another request. And you even have the ability to change, rename it as you like. Say this one, I don't like the name. I can rename it and call this one get all students. Let's get all students. So what's the URL for that one like? Localhost get all students. So this thing needs to match the way we represented it here. So this one has started. So this one is up and running. So if I send my request, forget all students, you see, it's empty. It's empty because I created it here. I've not added it. What I'm returning is basically this array list. But it's empty because I've not added anything to it. What I could do is to create another endpoint for adding something to that list. And to do that, because what you're doing, okay, I'm coming to that. So what I want to do now is this is always a good shortcut for us not to be typing the entire thing before. So what's the URL we're dealing with? Register students, right? So this is for register students. And because what you're anyway, let me leave that. So this is where you go to body. This is where you pass in the student information once you register. So you go to body and you go to type. Where is it? Where is it? Okay. I have to change this to post first. I have to change it to post because what I want to do is a post request. What you could do is to save it. So if I come to body and select, where's JSON now? Where's JSON? Request to body, transparent, body, from that. Where is JSON? Where is JSON? Okay, let me minimize this thing. Okay. So I have to select this row first. I have to select row. And then, remember, I went to body. I select raw. This is more like I want to supply raw information. Then I'll come here. Because what we're working with is JSON type object. Remember I told you what JSON type object is. I shared an article for you. So what you have to supply now is everything. It will map the way you presented your students here. So the name has to be of type string, the ID has to be of type long, the email has to be of type string, and the score has to be of type long. So name, which is type the name. What's the name? Let's call this one Amara. Okay. So let's say this is the name of the student, and then what's the next thing? The next one is the person's ID. So this is the ID of the student. Let's say the ID is 10, comma. So what's the other one? Email of the person. Let's say the email is of type. Let's say the email is amara@gmail.com. So the other one is the person's score. Let's say the person's score is 50. So this is it. So remember, we tried to get all students from here and we sent it and it's returning nothing. Also note that I could decide to add it forward slash here and I could also decide to remove it. Everything is still the same. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So for this post, so I just created this student. Remember, so the ID is of type long, the score is of type 50. So this is name and everything. So what I could do is to click send. So if I click send, what I'm expecting is that it will come here and carry the. This is what that request body does. It captures it. It understand that you're trying to supply some body of information. In this case, which is this, and it also understands that it's going to be of type student. So when things go fine, it's going to add it to this particular list. So if I click this, if I click this, it's going to add. So 200 means that everything went fine. So this status code 200 means everything went fine. Remember 404 meant that 404 meant that something went the page is not found basically. So instead of us leaving this thing out, you see this thing went fine and no message was printed. What I could have actually done was to make this thing to return some form of information. So after adding the students, what I could do is to return, let's say, students added successfully. So this is something I could have done. I could have returned a message, and so this will take effect only when I restart my server. So let's go back and try to get all students and see what happens. So if I try to get all students, I'm expecting to see that particular one I just created. So this is the person now. So this is that student I just added. Is you understanding? Do you guys understand everything I say so far?
Yes, sir.
Alright. So for this other one, this particular endpoint, making use of this hard coded students I've created here. So this is not how an application typically works. This is just for demonstration. So this one I just did here is how application works. You are the one that supplied your own information from this other user side. It's going to store the person in this particular list. And now I want to view all the students that are in that list. I made it up. So it was able to return all of those things. So if for example, I wanted to, for a full-fledged application, I wanted to return every student. Anyway, you get the idea. You get the idea. So this basically is how applications work. This is how applications work. Any questions? All right. Bukola, are we fine? All right. So I'll stop recording now. Okay. So um, our last class will be on Saturday. I'll just brush up and round up everything I've done so far, and we do a little project afterwards. And that would be it with you guys.
So the two apps that we'll be using, okay, the other one, Spring Book, is not an app.
You say Spring
It's
Boot
just
is
the
not an app.
website, right?
No, Spring Boot is it's actually an application. It's, a, it's an application. It's a framework per se. That's the actual name for it. It's a framework that enables us to create the back-end application web application. The back-end code for web application, basically. All these jargons I've been writing here is possibly because of Spring Boot. Yeah.
Because we bring in the things
Sorry?
on Spring Book. We put the packages on Spring Book on our IntelliJ, right?
No, yeah, you put it inside this from the XML file.
Okay.
The dependencies you need. Yeah. There are some dependencies that must be there for all of your Spring Boot applications. One of them is this one. This Spring Boot starter web. It must be there for your application, every Spring Boot application you want to build. So So this particular first one, it has to be there. I don't need this one. I use it for demo. So that's the. So let me just restart. Let me restart this server because I want to see the information that I passed in here. I want to see this information that I passed in here. I want to see. I want to get see how it's printed anytime. So this, what I just did there was for post mapping and get mapping. So for delete mapping, what you can do is to pass in the URL of the information you want to update or you want to delete. And for the updating, that's where you use the put mapping. Delete, you use your delete mapping. Alright, okay, the application is coming up. So anytime you start your server, the previous information is actually lost. So by starting it again, you have to supply every information all over again. So if I was here and I
So
tried,
how do I have access to it if it's lost?
if you okay to do that, that's where database comes in. You want to get the old information stored. That's the database. It doesn't just get stored in the head like that. Yeah. So our scope of study doesn't go that way. So I've started my server. It's running. So if I want to add the students all over again, I can add. So I'm expecting a message. This message, student added successfully. I'm expecting it. Oh, this forget of students. It's empty. Let me add. Okay, you can see the message now. Student added success. Let me rename this thing to something else. Let's say add student. So I've added just one student. So let me add another student. Good, good name. And let's say the ID of this guy is 11. Let's say good. Let's say good score is 100. So I'll add again. I've added two students. Now if I want to see all the students that are on my list, I'm expecting those two persons. So these two students are on my list. Alright, that'll be it. That'll be it. Alright, so no questions, I guess. Alright, good night, all of you. Till we see again. Saturday is the next class. Alright.
Okay, sir.
Good
Sir.
night.
Thank you. Good night.